Carly, I'm so excited about your new book, and I absolutely love the title of it. Do you want to explain a little how you came up with the name for it and what was behind it? This
Totally. Yes.
whole idea.
I know. So my new book is called Tell Her She Can't, Inspiring Stories of Unstoppable Women. And the initial name came to me actually in the bathtub, which is where most great ideas come, right? I don't know why. It was like maybe 3 years ago. I was sitting in the bath and I just kept hearing, tell her she can't, tell her she can't. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's totally like the theme of my life. Like I've perpetually been the underdog. I've always been the one that's like, yeah, tell me I can't, And so I just started thinking on it. And, several years later, the book came to be. And now June 29th, the book is officially out in the world. So It's such a journey.
A defiant title too. There's a lot of energy behind, I think, those words.
Totally. And I mean, I think like as a human, I'm a pretty defiant person, kind of out of necessity, but we can get more into that a little bit later. But I just believe that, we all should go after the dreams that we have in our hearts, regardless of who tries to stand in our way or to tell us that we can't.
So where do you get that from? I read the first chapter of your book and the story you told about childhood, and we've all had those, experiences in childhood that kind of scar us for life.
Yeah, my childhood sucked.
How did you overcome that, and where did you find the courage to kind of take that first step forward in becoming who you are now?
Yeah, so I grew up in I struggle with the word abusive, but it was a very abusive home. And I was constantly being told, basically every day that I was too fat, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't wanted, and I was hearing all these messages from my step family, unfortunately. And it created this environment that I really couldn't get out of. And so the only way that I could kind of push back against this was to be like, no, I am not that, I am worthy, I am special, what you kind of have to like tell yourself these things to get through it.
Survival.
To survive. And because there was no other option, right? Like there was no other place for me to go, no other home that I could go to. So when I was 11 years old, and this is a very pivotal moment for me, my mother sat me down on my bed and she said to me, I'm sorry that things are the way they are, but you have two choices. You can let this define you, or you can use it as fuel. And so in that moment, I was like, wait a minute, I still have personal choice. Like I still get to decide what I am and am not capable of and who I am and am not, right? And so that kind of changed everything for me. And I'm lucky that my mother said this to me at such a young age, because it really reminded me that like, although my circumstances were pretty sucky, I had the power to get through them. And like, I didn't have to, the rest of my life did not have to be marred or scarred because of what I had lived through, that I could push through and I could have whatever happiness or success I dreamed of.
Yeah, it's a really big moment when you discover you have choice.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, I think it takes a while for some people to get there, right? And you kind of still have to, you still have to remind yourself. I still have to remind myself even now. It's like I still get to decide how I respond to any situation, right? Like any negativity, any kind of conflict. Like every day, you get choice. And so I think really what this project became about was, how I and how other women who have gone through adversity responded to that choice and who persisted anyway. Like, nevertheless, she persisted. So,
yeah. So you interviewed about 100 women to write this?
I interviewed 100 women over quarantine. And it was like kind of the best project that I've ever been a part of, because these conversations were so real and so vulnerable and so scary in a lot of ways. And then they totally ended up like healing me and charging me and, empowering me in so many ways. So I interviewed 100 women. I ended up cutting that down to just 35 for this first book, and then also started a podcast to go along with some of the other stories. So, it's crazy when you start to really do what's meant for you, I believe that doors just open. Like it's just easy. It feels kind of seamless. And this project was so that. Like I put out one call in Haro, Help a Reporter Out, and I got like 300 emails from women being like, I want to tell my story, you know, and I love that because like your story matters, their stories matter, my stories matter. So it was so beautiful to kind of share how we got through our worst of days and into our best of days together. And like I don't even think the ladies know this, but like they really healed me in a lot of ways, you know? And this project like gave all of that, you know, angsty kind of energy a space to go and like a full circle completion moment. So
what I love about the stories you have too is they're kind of regular everyday women just like you and me. They're not famous celebrities. Well, some are, but
most are not.
Just us, regular.
Yeah, most are not. And I think it's really a project that shows you like anything can happen at any point in time, right? But like, again, you get to decide how you want to deal with that. So for example, one of the stories in the book is about this woman who took out a pizza box and then all of a sudden a 1,000-pound tree limb came crashing down and broke her neck. So like in that moment, right, you know, after, not in that moment, but like a few, like in the resulting weeks, she had to decide, did she want to go back to her life as she knew it? You know, what was best for her healing? What was best for her soul? And it's really beautiful because she just, like everyone else in the book, was like, I'm not going to let this define me and destroy me. You know, this is something that happened and this is how I dealt with it afterwards. And so, but exactly, it's everyday women. It's ordinary circumstances, you know, things that we can all relate to. You might not have a tree falling on your neck, right? But I can guarantee at some point someone told you that you couldn't do something, you know, or that you weren't the right person to enact this dream or goal or vision. So I think it's been something that I think a lot of people, especially women, can relate to, because so often, you know, we're told by other people that our lives should look a certain way or that we should play a certain role, or, you know, I'm just not into any of that BS anymore.
Yeah. Do you think that's changing? You know, as we look at the next generation, I have a 20-year-old daughter and I feel like as a parent, because I was so aware of feeling unempowered growing up, that now maybe I'm overcompensating to empower her to do whatever she wants to do without any barriers, without any limits. Do you think there's a shift happening in all of this?
I definitely do. Yeah, I for sure do. I mean, even just my own mother, you know, she never really got to live a life for her. She never even really thought that she could ask for her life for her. She just kind of did what women do, right? She made a home, she had a kid, she did the thing. And so, but for me now, she's like, go, run, like do all the things, travel the world, have adventures, you know, and I love that. And I do think that it's changing, but I still think that's very dependent on, you know, where you live in the world, right? So like even where you live in the United States or North America. So, you know, a lot of gender stereotypes certainly still exist. And I think, you know, as we become more aware, those change. And I love to see that.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why communities like ours, I mean, we both run women's communities, are so important. And even though there are many of them, we just, you know, my attitude is like rising tide. Let's do all we can to help women, and I feel like we're all united in that effort, partly because we've had those experiences ourselves and we know what it feels like to have to repeatedly rise up. In fact, I rise tattooed on my arm to remind me every day, like even when those things happen that make you just want to give up, you've just got to keep going. You got to like step back up and keep going.
You do. I mean, you don't, right? Like you can choose the alternative, but I think the whole point of life is to push ourselves to do the things that are most challenging and to learn from those things, right? And I think at the end of your days, you don't want to sit around and say, oh gosh, I wish that I hadn't listened. You know, I wish that I had pushed myself harder. I wish that I had lived a life that I wanted to live. And I think it's just time.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on doing the book. I can't wait to read the book.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
You're funny. I love this recording.